Apple making some big announcements. We've got a lot to talk about, so we're going to go straight to Larry Dignan with more on this. Larry, let's start with the services.
Apple today rolled out a series of services: Apple News Plus, Apple Video Streaming, Apple TV Plus. I think that's what they're calling it. And frankly, from a business model perspective, the thing I was most energetic about was the Apple Card. Because I think as far as growth goes for Apple, it's going to be a huge win for them, certainly from a profit margin perspective, because it ties into Apple Pay. It comes in they have a pretty interesting rewards program. There's a lot of details in terms of, there's no late fees. They talk about low interest rates, but it's unclear to me what those interest rates are. But the thing to keep in mind for Apple, basically it turns the iPhone into a wallet even more. And for that because it's a personal finance app, wallet, there's a titanium physical card, which I suspect there will be a lot of demand for just because, well, it's Apple, right? So you're used to buying trendy hardware that looks kind of cool. And even the credit card looks kind of cool. So I think what's really happening here is that at the end of the day, when we write about this services event and this services pivot 5-6 years from now, we'll probably be talking about the Apple Card, because I think that's the business model innovation that really turns it into a bank, really. So Apple's becoming a bank in a lot of ways. And that's going to be pretty important from a growth perspective, as well as just profit margins over time. So if you look at banks, there was it's a very nice financial model, right? You're kind of a middleman, you take a bunch of fees, and it's pretty interesting.
All right, Larry, expand a little bit on competition for us.
So the competition here is going to be pretty fierce. I think we haven't seen the details of the Apple Card yet, but if you're a business or a consumer, it's all about the points today, right? So you're trying to get reward points. It's whether those reward points are for hotel, airline miles, it could be college funding through UPromise, cash back. There are a bunch of rewards programs out there. And I think Apple, by giving you 3% rewards for things that you buy through Apple, whether it's an app store, Apple, or the Apple physical retail stores, I think that's going to drive purchases, right? Because it's sort of, you dangle that out there and people are incentivized to buy more stuff. So for that, it's sort of like a psychological thing. And then it's tiered rewards, really. So if you buy somewhere else, you get daily cash, which is their rewards program. You get daily cash if you use Apple Pay, which is interesting. And then if you use the physical card, you get 1% back. So in the rewards hierarchy, it looks like it's a pretty generous rewards card. So I think for that, I think it'll probably get corporate use as well as consumer use. The other competition here, so any credit card company that relies on rewards a lot, the biggest one I'm thinking of is Capital One. I think that's going to be a real Apple Card's going to be a real threat to Capital One. I think on the app side of the equation, Apple's putting itself, kind of in that financial literacy and budgeting fray. So it's going to compete more with Intuit, Mint, and then even on the payments landscape, right? I mean, the more Apple Pay and Apple Card gets accepted places, Apple Cards basically has Goldman Sachs backing it from a bank perspective, and then it has MasterCard for distribution and the payment schema. So that's pretty wide footprint. So there on that level, it'll compete with PayPal and Venmo, which is also interesting. And of course, Google and, Google Pay and those sort of things.
All right, Larry, and in terms of adoption, who do you see running out first to take advantage of these services?
I could totally see consumers and a lot of small businesses going to get it. I think the real win for Apple that's going to be interesting is corporate card adoption. So most companies today use American Express as a corporate card, and it's connected into their back-end systems. But I think if you are a corporation that's very embedded with iOS and you have your iPads and iPhones in the field as a corporate device, I think Apple Card's going to look interesting to people. And then if Apple gets into that as far as enterprise payments and, travel and expense, then it's a real profit center for them. And so, you add it up and all the pyrotechnics, they trotted out all these stars and all this stuff for Apple Video. And, the news thing was interesting. There's an arcade, which is, kind of interesting. And all that's going to generate revenue. But I think at the end of the day, the real win is just going to be Apple becoming a bank. I mean, financially, it's going to be a nice turbo boost for those growth results going forward. So my guess is all the Wall Street types, they basically saw the Apple card and they ran out and started playing with their spreadsheets and models to try to map this out to see what it looks like. The card will be available in the summer. So my guess is it could give a fourth quarter boost. And what's interesting here is that, it kind of takes the conversation away from the iPhone because we're going to be talking about Apple as a bank in the not too distant future.
And for more on the big Apple announcement, make sure you stick with ZDNet and Tech Republic.